So Aaron, I may or may not remember this right. It might not have been you guys. It might have been an ESPN deep dive before you were there. Uh, NFL Network is replaying the Redskins Bills Super Bowl 26, the 91 season. The game was played in January of 92. I know that some analytics experts have determined that to be the best team ever.
Yep,
Have you? Is that
that's
you?
me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me. Our best team ever by DVOA, if you include the playoffs in your analysis, is 1991 Washington. Yep.
Wow, that's pretty badass, dude. So let's get
They were like the only team. Like, we've got like 45 years of data or whatever, and they're the only team that's in the top 50 teams for all three phases of the game.
Wow.
Just an incredibly well-balanced team that did everything well.
Yeah. I mean, B was on it. I think you agree, Brian?
I 100% agree.
Aaron, let's get to kind of what we're looking at, expecting for this upcoming NFL season, dude. Let's start with Washington and zoom out. They've overhauled, since you last were on the program with us, they've overhauled everything. GM, coach, quarterback, about half of the roster as it currently stands. What do you make kind of big picture of the Washington overhaul?
Okay, big picture. I love it. Okay, a big fan of the new owner. Obviously, I'm an analytics guy. So I'm a big fan of the analytics bent that he has taken with his NBA team and his NHL team. I am looking forward to them taking a similar bent with the NFL team. That's great. I think Quinn as a head coach is an interesting, retread is a negative word. Obviously, the man made the Super Bowl when he was first a head coach, so retread sounds worse than it is. It's too bad Ben Johnson wouldn't take the job. I think he's a really interesting head coaching candidate. But, the Quinn has been a really good defensive coordinator for the last couple of years. And then the draft, they had the number 2 pick, and they took the guy everybody sort of felt was the second best quarterback. So you can't really go, wrong there. You got to take your shot at the quarterback.
Gotcha. So now looking at what they've put together, I think it's important for fans, especially coming off the way the Texans changed everything last year. But I think fans still need to maintain a level of honest expectations where, this team was 4-13 last year, no Pro Bowlers, but they have overhauled the staff. They have a lot of new guys in. Like, when you look at this team right now, what do you think?
Look, the possibility for rookie quarterback is a very wide range of possibilities, okay? Houston is absolutely a possibility for what Washington's season looks like. So is Carolina.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't know which is good. Certainly it looks like things will be better than they were in Carolina because the receivers are better, right? So what Daniels has to work with looks better than what Bryce Young had to work with. But, we don't have any idea what Jaden Daniels will be. Like, you have to take the gamble because he could turn out to be really good. He could also turn out to be pretty bad. Mm-hmm. We just have no idea.
When you start projecting and looking at things in the analytics world, how do you all do it? I know we go basically based off of what we've seen, and we go based off of our opinions. To be honest with you, what do you all do in the analytics world? You go by numbers from previous years or what?
Yeah, we're looking at numbers from the last 3 years. We're looking at personnel changes, right? Like adding certain amounts of personnel that played at a certain level last year, getting rid of certain personnel. New coaches, a new coaching staff normally means, all other things being equal, a new coaching staff normally means a little bit of a step back because you have to learn new schemes. And then, with the rookie quarterback, your projection has to be that the rookie quarterback will be bad. Because the most likely scenario is that either Daniels is bad or Daniels struggles as a rookie and then gets good after that, right? It's much less likely that he's good right away. Mm-hmm. And so you have to sort of expect that he'll be bad his first year, knowing that the hope is there. Like the sentence, Washington surprised everyone and made the playoffs, is a sentence that makes a lot more sense than the sentence, the New York Giants surprised everyone and made the playoffs.
All right.
Even though my general expectations for both of those teams are similar.
Please tell me why you don't like the Giants.
I mean, they're not good. They weren't good last year. I mean, what do you want? I mean, Daniel Jones is not good. I mean, they've made some additions, and Malik Neighbors is great. And Malik Neighbors was actually the number one receiver in our playmaker score projection system.
Ahead of Marvin.
He was better than Marvin, yeah, because he had to share the ball with Brian Thomas. So you have to give him some credit for the fact that he put up such great numbers, even though he had to share the ball with another first-round receiver.
Wow.
And, yeah, I mean, it's nice that they have Brian Burns, but, I mean, they're depending on two rookies in their secondary. And, I mean, I like Brian Dable a lot and Mike Kafka, but it doesn't look good.
Let's keep going around the NFC East then. How does a person with an analytical bent explain what the hell happened to the Eagles the second half of last year?
Yeah, you never want to go full Kotite.
Wow.
That's an old pull. Jeff, you don't know about Rich Kotite.
They really fell apart at the end of the year. Here's the thing. We like to think of how teams play at the end of the year as rolling over to the following year. It actually doesn't tend to do that. The best way to predict what a team will do the following year is how well they were for the whole year. The thing is that the Eagles, because of how bad they were at the end of the year, it dragged down how good they were for the whole year. So they're not going to be that bad again, like as bad as they were in the last couple of weeks. But they certainly don't look like they're going to probably be as good as they were 2 years ago, for example. And I think that the gap between Dallas and Philadelphia is a little larger than people give it credit.
Well, Dallas team that seems to always have the right people in place. They just can't seem to get over the hump. Have you figured out anything of why do they not get to the point where they are projected to go most times?
No, man, isn't that, sort of one of the holy grails of analytics is figuring out why teams win and lose in the playoffs. So you can, trying to figure out if there's something real. Listen, the fact is the NFL is filled right now with a lot of teams that can't get over the hump, depending on what you think the hump is. That's what happens when the same team wins the Super Bowl 3 times in the last 5 years, right? So Dallas is in really the same place as Buffalo, and in some ways the same place as San Francisco and Cincinnati, even though San Francisco and Cincinnati have lost Super Bowls. So there's a lot of teams where you're like, why can't they make it happen in the playoffs? But historically, there are a lot of people who can't make it happen in the playoffs until the year that they do. There's 1 year they make it happen in the playoffs, and perhaps that will happen to Dallas. It will help if they do not go out there in the playoffs and play a defensive personnel set that is guaranteed to get killed by the specific offense that they're facing in that game. Don't do that.
I agree. So it sounds to me you think the Cowboys take the NFC East.
Yeah, listen, I will admit that our projections this year are not very different from last year. We don't have a lot of surprise teams. We have basically the same team winning the divisions. Now, we know that in reality that's not going to happen. There will be a couple of surprises. There will be a couple of teams that don't repeat. But right now, it's certainly, I think Dallas is a fairly good chance of repeating.
Do you think, is there any team that you're looking at that may shock some people? The team we looked at last year, they weren't good, but they may surprise
like
people
Houston.
This
Yeah,
year.
no. Usually there is a team like that, but I don't have Chicago that high. I don't have Washington that high. The team that I have surprisingly high is New Orleans. Because New Orleans is boring and dull. And that's different from sucking. And people think New Orleans is very bad, but they're not. They're very average with a very easy schedule. And I think they're going to surprise people by being boring and dull with an easy schedule.
That's interesting. Now, does that mean you buy kind of Derek Carr, or you just think they're the team that gets in and then probably gets boat raced by a better team?
Both. I buy that Derek Carr is an average NFL quarterback. He's an average NFL starter. He's not a bad starter. He's not a great starter. He's not a top 10 quarterback. But he's an average NFL quarterback. And yes, they're going to make it into the playoffs and get killed by whoever wins the 5 seed in the NFC.
All right, Tampa Bay, team that did some things last year. Do you expect them to stay the course, take a step forward, or a step back?
A little bit of a step back. Receivers are still aging. Questions about the offensive line, a little, depending on a rookie center. They lost, Carlton Davis, who's an important player. And I just don't know how much I believe in Baker Mayfield being as good as he was last year on a regular basis. So I'm a little bit like a step back on them.
All right.
Going around the AFC, like I'm not smart enough to be an analytics person, but considering there's 32 teams and a three-peats never happened, the numbers got to tell you that the Chiefs aren't going to win it all again, right? But
listen, every year we favor someone to win the Super Bowl. And what it means to favor someone before the season to win the Super Bowl means you think they have like a 15% chance of winning, which means the majority of the time they will not win. So even if Kansas City, right, we don't have Kansas City as our favorites for this year. We have San Francisco because they have an easier path through the playoffs. But if Kansas City is obviously one of the top teams, but that doesn't mean that they're more likely to win it than not. They're more likely to not win it.
Well, San Francisco, okay, now you look at them. That they've been consistent enough, but eventually the injury bug began to take its course in the NFL.
That is the one worry for San Francisco is that they have been pretty healthy. And if injuries hit, that they may have some problems. But I think they're a pretty deep roster. Now, here's the thing. A lot of their contracts end this year. So whether they're going to be that deep a roster in 2025, I'm not sure. They may be in a situation like Buffalo, where Buffalo on the surface is as good as they were last year, but their depth is not as good as it was last year. So if they have injuries like they did last year, they're in trouble.
Talking with Aaron Schatz here on the BetQL guest line. Sports betting has come to the DMV. Don't place that first bet without checking with BetQL. You can find all of Aaron's work at Schatz NFL, SCHATZ NFL, and check him out, ESPN Plus and FTN Fantasy. From a fantasy perspective, what are some surprises? Is it too early? Like, is there a team out there that you think people are have high expectations for that might just suck?
It's interesting. I think because of the fact that you have to assume that rookie quarterbacks will be bad, I think people are going to be overrating the Chicago receivers in fantasy football. Keenan Allen was really good last year, but he is getting older. And I also think people are going to overrate the Atlanta offense a little bit because you don't know what Kirk Cousins is going to be like at age 36 coming back from an Achilles injury.
That's true. What about New England, dude? They seem bad, and if you liked Drake May or not coming out of college, I think he's landed in a really bad spot.
We have no idea, honestly, because so much depends on Alex Van Pelt, and I don't know, if Alex Van Pelt can develop a quarterback. I think Brissett's going to be the starter. Brissett is going to surprise people. He's not as bad as you think, and
we saw it here. He can play, man.
Yeah, and Cleveland 2 years ago in Cleveland with Van Pelt, he had his best season. And their defense is going to be really good. I know they lost Belichick as the guy who runs the defense, but they're getting back two of their top three corners and their top pass rusher. So I think the Patriots are going to surprise people by winning like 6 or 7 games. I realize that that's damning with faint praise, but that defense is going to be a lot better than people give them credit for.
So who are the dregs of the league? If you don't think it's New England, maybe
our projections are really kind of down on Arizona.
Why?
Here's an interesting one. All other things being equal, this doesn't sound like this makes sense, but having a top drafted wide receiver or tight end, offenses actually tend to take a little bit of a step back and then a step forward in year 2. Sometimes I think there's a little bit of that feeding the star rookie that the star rookie's not necessarily ready for the for the league, so they're not necessarily as efficient as you want them to be. And then once they got some experience, they really shine. I realize there have been rookies like Jamar Chase who are like awesome as rookies. So maybe Harrison is that guy. I don't know. Carolina doesn't look like it's very good, to be honest.
No.
And New England, I mean, their offense is the direct of the league.
Right.
Denver, the AFC West, Los Angeles Chargers. Herbert is there, but the roster is kind of a mess. And Denver is a mess unless, Nick shocks everybody as a rookie. So, I mean, that's the funny thing about the Chiefs is the Chiefs probably have the easiest path to a division title.
That's so funny. And if you'd said that 2 years ago, you'd been thrown out of the building because everybody's like, oh, the AFC West is so loaded. I wanted to circle back to one thing. Talking with Aaron Schatz, the godfather of DVOA. If you're into analytics and you don't follow Aaron, you're not into analytics. But you said earlier that you were impressed with Quinn's work as a D coordinator, especially the last stop in Dallas. And frankly, I don't know how somebody couldn't be. That said, what do you think of Cliff as the OC? What do you think of the air raid, the no huddle? What kind of offense should we be expecting here?
I mean, I'm not an expert on offensive. What's the word I'm looking for? Like
efficiency,
staidness. Yeah, like I'm an expert on efficiency, but not like how creative. Like offense, I'm not an expert on offensive creativity where I can watch film and go, well, that's pretty creative play calling right there. But the people that I trust that are experts on that do not believe that Cliff Kingsbury is a creative play caller. They believe that his offense in Arizona got staid and boring and very expected. Like they're not high on Kingsbury as the offensive coordinator. So I can't tell you that I'm particularly high on him, but I don't have statistical evidence for why I'm not high on Kingsbury. But the people who are non-stats people that I trust are not high on him as the offensive coordinator.
Can I kind of posit one theory on that? What we know out there after year 3 with Kyler, it did kind of plateau, right? They had that really good season in 21. Kyler then demands a new contract, deletes everything off his Instagram. The agent posts that wacky letter and all that. Finally gets paid. In that contract, remember they had a thing that he had to look at his iPad 10 hours a week, and then that got
then they took it out,
and then that got public, and they took it out, so they were embarrassed.
Yeah.
And there was like a video game clause. Like, is it possible Kyler's
wasn't putting in the work?
No, it's possible. But I'm also thinking about things like DeAndre Hopkins always on the same side running the same 3 routes. Like that kind of like non-creativity. That has nothing to do with whether Kyler plays video games too much or not. That's
true. It's going to be interesting to find out. Aaron, we always appreciate you making time for us,
Appreciate you, Aaron.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on. FTN Football Almanac will be out in mid-July. So follow me on social media to find out more.
Dude, drop a line when it's out, and we'll have you back on, and we'll promote the hell out of it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, bro.